Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news and general update show. Obviously today we will speak a little bit about the Mason Greenwood situation, which I know is a sensitive topic for some, so if it's not your kind of thing, towards the end of the video we won't be talking about it, so come back towards the end of the live stream. But obviously Ten Hag has spoken about Greenwood. Man United have also given a statement on Greenwood and a bit more of a clear understanding of where Greenwood's future might lie. Ten Hag basically said what the Man United statement was, and obviously Manchester United kind of on Greenwood as of now are inducting their own investigation on Greenwood, looking at what's his evidence, why did the witness pull out, potential sponsorships, fans, Man United basically are going to see how it affects them financially. But now, generally, you know what the Glazers are like. You know how they only care about money? The Glazers are probably thinking, Man United are probably thinking, because they come from this business perspective, what's going to make us the most money? 20 million terminating Greenwood's contract, or Greenwood's a striker. Maybe we don't have to buy Ten Hag a striker in the summer. They're going to think of it in a way of how much money could bringing Greenwood back actually cost them. Because if they don't bring him back, they have to pay him 20 million to terminate his contract. But if they do bring him back, will they lose 20 million in sponsors? That's what I think. I think, it's not about what the moral decision is. It's not about what the fans want. It's about, if we bring Greenwood back, would fans boycott? If we bring Greenwood back, would we lose money from sponsors? Is that going to affect the amount of money and the PR of the brand? The way Man United, I think, are looking at this situation, I get the impression they're looking at the situation is they're looking at it from a financial aspect. They're looking and just making a decision on Greenwood through the sponsorships, the financial effect it could have, because that is all that this club cares about: money, money, money. Now, there is the argument, and we see a lot of people about the whole situation, very conflicting opinions. People, there are unfortunately idiots out there saying, "Oh, she needs to be charged. She lied, she lied, she lied, she lied," like an idiot. It just because he was not charged does not mean he's innocent. But from the other perspective, we can say we haven't seen his evidence. We've only seen hers. What if he's got sufficient evidence to prove that this was some kind of framing or role playing? You can also say from that perspective. But from what we've seen, we hear the voice note. You can't unhear the voice note. Too much damage has been done. The argument, have witnesses been paid off, the case has been dropped, it doesn't mean he's innocent. So although legally Man United can bring him back, and there's no problem if Man United bring him back, because if Ten Hag wants when they bring him back, legally, there's no problem with that. He's under contract, good footballer, wasn't charged, wasn't convicted, can come back. The question is that going to affect the sponsors? Is that going to affect the PR of the club? Is that going to affect the relation of the club? Because we've all heard those voice notes, or audio notes, or audio messages. We've all heard them. And although, you could argue and he could argue, we haven't heard my side of the story, then it's evidence from one side, and that is why more people will side with Harriet. There's no, Man United will not get any trouble for bringing him back. It's just, they know that everyone's heard that. They know that people can't unhear that. And they've got to find a way to justify bringing him back, and they've got to look at it with sponsorship deals and all of that. And would they be okay with him bringing him back? So where United's stance is, and what I'm getting from Man United's statement, and what we're getting from the impression Ten Hag said, is United are doing their own investigation. And when I say United are doing their own investigation, they're probably investigating more what implications this will have for them, and probably taking time to make a decision for them rather than doing an investigation on the case. So we'll get into the news, and we'll get into some of the things Ten Hag said and more as well. I'm happy with whatever Ten Hag decides to do, or to keep or get rid of the person. Ten Hag makes such a big decision. I think it's not just on Ten Hag, it's on all the people around. And Daniel said he feels sorry for Harriet, and I do as well. Look, because people will think because he's not charged that he's innocent and all of that. And she obviously kind of fell through and just kind of wanted to drop it because she didn't want to speak up. But people are actually coming at her saying that she lied and that she needs to go to prison. It's like, she didn't lie. Well, she might have, but realistically, just because he's not charged doesn't mean she's a lie. People are turning on, people are giving us so much stick, and I think it's absolutely horrid. So I think, the thing about a case like this is it's such a sensitive thing, but I think some of the things that I've read online recently are just absolutely horrid. Honestly, so disgusting. And I do really feel sorry for a lot of her, and because some of the things people write online are not nice in the slightest. But let's continue on to more interesting story. He'll never play for United again. I think what I expect to happen is comes back to the under-23s, never involved in the first team, never plays for the first team, is sold. what I think as well. And the media is toxic, social media is toxic, but there's very conflicting opinions on what to do with him. I want to talk about other news as well, because we're reportedly in for a midfield signing, really young American midfield player, kind of Frankie de Jong-esque as well. And Greenwood will get terminated or lose another sponsorship of money. Yeah, I mean, as I said with Greenwood, it's Man United looking. Was it going to cost them more to keep him and lose sponsorship money? Is it going to cost them more to terminate his contract? I think that's what United are thinking about, because look, we all know United, we all know the owners. We've got news on new ownership that we're going to talk about in today's show. But one thing we do know about Manchester United is, what's their number one priority at this club? What's the number one priority at Manchester United? Is it how the fans feel, or is it how much money can we make and how much money can the Glazers take out in dividends? It's how much money we can make and how much money the Glazers can take out in dividends. Also, apparently Marcel Sabitzer is set to make his Manchester United debut tomorrow versus Crystal Palace. So do smash the like button if you're excited for a potential Sabitzer debut tomorrow versus Palace as well. And obviously the Greenwood charges have been dropped and United will be making that investigation over the next week. I don't think Sabitzer will start versus Palace. I think because Fred was very good last game, I expect it to be Fred, Casemiro, Bruno midfield 3 versus Palace. But I think Sabitzer could potentially come on as a sub as well. And also, apparently Aubameyang's basically being kicked out of Chelsea and things have hit the rocks with Aubameyang. But we're not here to talk about Chelsea as well. And we've got some interesting comments in today's chat that I'm not going to read out some of them. And if Greenwood wants to play football, he should go to another team. He spoiled his contract at Man United. If he never done that, he could have had a good season. I think Greenwood, you know what the sad thing is? The sad thing is, talk about this situation. I don't want to drag on this situation, but he would have been such a good player under Ten Hag if none of this had went down, because before Ronaldo came in, he played 4 games as a striker, scored 4 goals in 4 games, clinical, 2-footed striker, was meant to be our striker for the next 10 years, was clinical, was good. You know, it was meant to be, and he was good. You know, it was such an exciting player and such an exciting prospect. And I can imagine under Ten Hag, obviously us needing a striker, Martial being unreliable, he would have been such a big part of this Ten Hag team this season. He would have been Ten Hag's striker, and Ten Hag's the manager to get the very best out of him and make him the very best. And that's the worst part of the situation, is because a lot of it is what could have been. Now he might come back, he might start banging in the goals, and people will then forget what went down. But it will never feel the same. Like, even if he does come back and start banging in goals, you know, and like, you know, how Arsenal fans have just kind of forgot about what part he's doing. It's not the same. For me, it's a what would have been situation. I think he would have been fantastic under Ten Hag, and I think, you know, it's a shame that all this went down, but you know, we can't change the past. And I think, look, if he did come back, one, you can't guarantee he'll be the same player, because he's had a year without football, a year of probably not training much, mentally probably not there. You know, also you've got to think, like, how is he going to disrupt the dressing room if he comes back? Rashford's unfollowed him. A lot of the big players unfollowed him, don't talk to him anymore, don't think highly of him. A lot of those footballers have kids, partners, you know, younger sisters. You know, they heard that audio note and they're disgusted with him. And I get the impression a lot of people in the Man United dressing room don't want him back. Reportedly, Rashford was making a dig today on social media. It's a rumour that Rashford's dig was at Greenwood, but I don't think it was. But Rashford was making a comment of, we need to stop looking at the past and move forward. But I think he was just talking about United in general. I don't think he was talking about Greenwood. But even Fred was making a dig today, and Fred got interviewed today, and he said something like, one of Ten Hag's rules is to respect our partners. You know, isn't that weird that Fred's saying one of Ten Hag's rules is to respect our partners? The day after Mason Greenwood's charges are dropped. You know, does the Man United players want Greenwood back? Do they? They all unfollowed him on Instagram. They all probably heard that. They all probably saw what went on. And I think a lot of them were disgusted with that. You know, some of them will go, well, he's not charged. Like, we don't know his side of the story. We've only seen one side of the story, welcome him back. But Ten Hag's, and we did a video yesterday morning before we got released that the charges were dropped, about how Ten Hag's rebuilt the mentality of Manchester United and how, like, the crazy impact that Ten Hag's had on the dressing room. And I did a video just about Ten Hag changing the general mentality of the United dressing room, how we went from toxic last season, everyone hated everyone last season, to actually creating this nice dressing room environment. And, you know, does bringing back someone like Greenwood that maybe there might be a bit hostile relationships to, people won't be ultimately happy about it, does that impact the dressing room environment? Like, that is the big question. Is that going to have an impact on the dressing room environment? And I think potentially it could do. And I think that's also a worrying thing to take on. Nike took Greenwood back. I'm not sure if Nike have took Greenwood back. Nike dropped him right away as well. And United fans would slate him if he played for Chelsea, for example, get Greenwood out. I mean, this is the thing. And I always say this with the Greenwood case. is they will look at it and go, Arsenal plays for Partey, Boateng plays for Lyon, Mendy could even return to Man City. There's a lot of football players that have been, and I have to say, this is the one bit of sympathy I have with the Mason Greenwood case. The only bit of sympathy I have with Mason Greenwood is he's got a significant amount of more attention than anyone else. People like Greenwood is not the first footballer to go through this, and Partey's gone back and now acting like nothing happened. Mendy doesn't get the attention that Greenwood gets. Boateng, so many footballers have had this kind of situation come out. They never have much stick. The one thing about Greenwood is he's English and he plays for Manchester United. So in this current spotlight, he's going to get way more media attention. And the only sympathy I have with him is that, you know, people will be like, Partey's fine playing, like, you know, he wasn't blah, 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 but Greenwood can't play. And I'm like, well, the same thing happened with Partey. The evidence was less graphic. The only difference between the Partey and the Greenwood case was Arsenal didn't suspend him. Man United did suspend Greenwood. Mendy got suspended. We didn't see the evidence for the Benjamin Mendy case, but Man City had some morals and suspended him. We saw the evidence for the Partey case. Arsenal didn't suspend him. We saw the evidence for the Greenwood case. Greenwood, you know, Man United suspended Greenwood. And people think because Partey's not suspended, he's innocent, but because Greenwood's suspended, he's guilty. It's like the one thing, the only bit of sympathy I have with Greenwood on this case is you can argue if Partey's playing, if Boateng's playing, if this player's playing, if this player's playing, he can play. Now, realistically, none of them should be playing. You know, I'm not saying that he should be playing. I don't want that to get spun out of contracts. But if you're looking at that from a neutral view, unfortunately, this has happened multiple times in football. It's not just Greenwood. There's a lot more attention on the Greenwood situation than anyone else, but it's not just Greenwood. And that actually all these other players are playing. So why can't Man United do the same? The problem is, I think if Man United played Greenwood, and let's say if Greenwood puts on a United kit next month on the pitch, the outrage Greenwood will get will just be another level to anyone else because it's United, it's the biggest club in England, so everyone overreacts. If something happens to United, even the smallest thing, it's going to get more attention. The Benjamin Mendy and the Thomas Partey case never got the attention the Greenwood case got, because if you're English and you're Man United in this media, you get a new level of attention, an absolute new level of attention. And, you know, that is the thing. And if he does play again, there will be this kind of outrage. And I think that's what United are worried about. When United are looking at it, they're like, is this outrage going to cost us money? Is this going to do this? Is this going to do that? And I think that is the most problematic thing as well. Mason won't return to training, and I don't think he'll play anytime soon. I think my thought process with the Mason Greenwood case is he returns to training, potentially, but never plays again as well. And Gehan says, so they called him guilty before anything. I hope these players are perfect and never make mistakes. The thing is, if we're going to play devil's advocate, now I've heard the voice notes, I can't hear the voice notes, and from the voice notes, I think he's guilty unless he just hasn't been charged because it's a difficult situation to charge with, unless we find the evidence on his side gets released, because we haven't seen the evidence on his side. So we come with the assumption that he's guilty because we've only seen the evidence on her side. And when you hear those voice notes, you're like, that's horrid, that's disgusting, never play again. You can look at it with another perspective and say, you know what, we don't know everything that's gone on, we don't have evidence on his side, la-di-la-di-da. And that's, you know, I'm not defending it, I'm not defending the actions and all that. I don't want this to get taken out of context. I don't like what I heard, I can't hear those voice notes. If he plays again, there needs to be like a proper kind of reason released. But if he does play again, you know, people aren't going to be happy, people are going to be angry, but we've seen it time and time again in football. That's the point I'm trying to get. I don't want it to get taken out of context. And what's the difference with Partey? The only difference with Partey was because I think with Partey it was kind of text messages, but with Greenwood it was audio, and I think just audio hits it at a different level as well. But the sad thing is there's so many footballers that have been in this case with Mason Greenwood, and a lot of them come back and play as well. Mendy's case is even worse. He's been charged so many times. The Mendy case is interesting because apparently there's like 8 of them as well, and you know we hear the voice note and we come to the assumption he's guilty, but he's not been charged. The case has been dropped. A key witness pulled out. People stand obviously he's paid off a witness, but a key witness pulled out, and that is the situation. That because a key witness pulled out, because I think the girl might have pulled out as well, they've kind of dropped the case. And you know, even though the case is dropped, it's not like you can say, oh, he's innocent, because you hear that voice note and you're like, well, the case has been dropped. So. But United legally, I'm sure I want to repeat myself, but United legally can play him. United legally could bring him back to training tomorrow and play him like that. Boom, boom, boom. Case dropped, not charged with anything. You could put on a United kit tomorrow. And I think United would do that if the evidence wasn't released. 100%, I tell you this now. If we just heard that he'd been arrested and we knew nothing else about it. We just heard he was arrested, we knew nothing else about it. The audio wasn't released, the pictures weren't released. I guarantee United would have brought him back. I guarantee it. If it was like the Mendy case where you just heard about it but we did not see any of the physical evidence, I guarantee United would bring it back tomorrow, because they'd be like, it's dropped, it was a difficult situation. But because everyone's heard those audio notes, because everyone's seen those pictures, I don't know if United it will take a lot for United to bring him back, because there'll be a stir. If none of the evidence was released and it was just like he was arrested and we knew nothing, United 100% will bring him back tomorrow, because you know what Manchester United are like as well. People saying even Prince Andrew didn't get as much attention as Greenwood as well. And Alex B says the complicated part is Greenwood could take actions against the club not paying status or contract new owners and all of that as well. That's the thing as well. Legally, they can't do anything to Greenwood, so they have to buy him out his contract or take him back, and otherwise he could take action as well. But I think it's a big decision for Manchester United, and I think Ten Hag will get the final call. It'll be a decision where Man United will be like, Man United, this is what's going to happen, in my opinion. From what I'm hearing, from what I'm being told, from what I read, this is what's probably going to happen. United are making a decision, thinking about sponsorships and all of that as well. You know, it's been reported that the club are very split over if he should be allowed to resume his career. I think and I will show you this report that's just come out, actually. Some news just come out here about it. But it's basically saying that the Man United staff are split over Greenwood should be allowed to resume his career at United. What I think is happening is they're going to have this meeting with a lot of staff members. It's a big decision. They're going to weigh out the pros and cons. They're going to weigh out the pros. They're going to weigh out the cons. And then Mr. Murta, Mr. Arnold, Mr. Glazer are going to look at the pros and cons and put the pros and cons into a box that says economics above. Paying his contract out, 20 million loss. He returns. Does that impact sponsors? Does that impact this? Does that impact that? United's decision will be on, will it cost them more money to bring him back because of the implications it'll have with fans, with PR, or will it cost them more money to release him out of his contract? That's how I think United will think, because United are all about money. United go, this could be a striker. This means we might not need to spend 100 million on a striker. He's not been charged. Partey plays for Arsenal. Boateng plays. This player plays. This player plays. This player plays. Like, legally he can play and the fans will get over it, because look at the Partey situation. It's blown over. La-di-la-di-la. But then other people in the United staff will be like, well, the voice note was released. You can't unhear that. That voice note's so graphic. Even though the Partey evidence was released, this was another level. And then they'll say, we need to pay him out his contract because the money we'll lose in fans, sponsorship, PR could go pound, like down. So I think they'll make a decision probably based off the economic stance. And then if they decide that he can come back, I think that's a big decision for Ten Hag, because he could come back and then it's up to Ten Hag if he comes back and integrates into the first squad, because he's still like 20 or 21, or Ten Hag might say he can come back, but he's not going near the first team. It's going to disrupt the dressing room. It's going to disrupt what I'm building in the dressing room. And Ten Hag might say, yeah, you can return Greenwood, but I don't want you near the first team, disrupting that. If I'm followed you on Instagram, you need to be in the under 23s, and if you do well, we might integrate you back. I think it will be one of those, if they agree to have him back, then I think it's on Ten Hag, whether he just goes into the youth and then they sell him in the summer. I think his best option would be to go abroad. I don't think that this will ever be forgotten about unless evidence on his side gets released that really defends him and shows the video in some shape, or if the girl came out publicly and said that she forgave him, or like said she lied or something. I don't think this would ever be forgotten about, even though he's not been charged. So I think the club makes a decision, the staff makes a decision. As you can see, the staff are very split over this decision. And then I think if it's a yes, I think it's up to Ten Hag to, does he go back into the first team, does he play, or does he go back into the academy and get sold abroad? I mean, I think his best option is not, when I say return, I mean not return. I mean, obviously, don't just dump him with, just put him somewhere and then sell him in the summer. That would be what I think would be best. But the club very split on what to do as well. And Souness will blame Pogba for this. Do you know what I was thinking? I was just thinking, you know what? Imagine, you know, the outrage for Greenwood. Imagine if this was Paul Pogba. Imagine if what Souness would be saying as well. People saying only she can clear him. Well, he could have evidence on his side because the case was dropped and we've only seen evidence on her side. He could have evidence on his side that could prove that it was, I don't know, role play. I'm not saying that is the case as well. And people said if the Partey case was serious, he would be in jail. The cops found out early it was rubbish. Partey's bail has been extended 3 times. Like, we don't know what's gone on in the Partey case, but his bail has been extended 3 times. He's still being investigated because there's multiple cases and there's a confession that he made he made a confession that he did it. So, you know, whether that confession was, you know, forced out of him, you know, you don't know the context of it. You know, he's still been investigated as well, and it's a difficult thing. And as you can see, the staff are really split. And I have to say, I am glad I am not the person making that decision. I tell you what, more news has come out. More are like, guys, let's get into the news. Some story. It's all coming out now. It's all coming out, it looks like. So it's been said, just in, Manchester United split over whether Mason Greenwood should be allowed to resume his career. A substantial proportion of the workforce would be deeply unhappy if Greenwood played for the club again. Others feel a duty of care towards the player who joined at 7 and has not been found guilty of any crime. So what's come out just now is basically some people at United will feel deeply unhappy if Greenwood returns. Some people at Manchester United do not want Greenwood to return. They won't feel unhappy. But reportedly, other people at Manchester United think it's their duty of care. He's not been convicted. Now, that is interesting. That is a very interesting report as well. Shall we continue on the reports as well? If you continue up, it said that United have launched an internal process overseen by CEO Richard Arnold to determine the next steps regarding Greenwood. It was followed up by saying that there will be consideration of any potential commercial impact of keeping Greenwood and of how the episode has affected the United brand and received by their global partners who are monitoring the situation. AKA, what did I tell you? I told you that this is what I said I think would happen. Basically, Murta, Arnold are looking at the situation, how it's going to affect the brand, how it's going to affect the commercial side of the business, and a decision is going to be made of whether they're going to lose money or not. What did I say? What could we say? This is the board. This is the board. They will look at the Greenwood situation. They're conflicted. They're now going to see if the global partners, the brands, the sponsorships will all pull out or give them less money if Greenwood plays, if the brand is going to be damaged. Because you get rid of Greenwood, you pay him 20 million. You keep Greenwood, if you lose money in sponsors and partnerships, that could be even worse. So United aren't interested about the moral compass or what the fans feel or what the players feel. United are going, is this going to impact the commercial side? That is what United's investigation is. And that's basically what I told you on. United are making a decision, but they're going to talk to brands and global partners yet. Like that is literally what I said was going to happen. It's all about money to them. It's all about money to the board. It's about, actually, will it cost us more to keep or sell him? Like 100% as well. So yeah, I don't know what the brands will do as well. It's up to the club, and then I think Ten Hag will have a say in it as well. But basically, John Murta and Arnold are the people doing that decision. It's they feel they have a duty of care. It's basically been said that it's up to Murta and Arnold. It's up to Arnold. It's basically, I don't want to be Richard Arnold. I do not want to be Richard Arnold. It's up to Arnold to decide this. So what's been said about Greenwood and his future is, I'll just see if anything else comes out. I'm too lazy to read the story, so I'm just hoping that United Plug will tweet it. What's basically been said is that Arnold and Murta, sorry, not Murta, Arnold is the one overseeing it. But obviously, they had a meeting about Greenwood. So Arnold had a meeting with all the staff about Greenwood, probably Ten Hag, probably the players involved. So basically, what I'm getting the impression from this story is there are players at United, there's staff at United that do not want Greenwood back, would not be happy, would not feel comfortable if Greenwood's back. But there's also staff and players at United that think he's been here since he's 7, he's a young boy, like he's not been found guilty, we don't know the whole story, bring Greenwood back. So everyone at United, so John Arnold, who's overseeing the process of should we bring Greenwood back or not, is speaking to the club, speaking to the staff, speaking to the players about how they feel. Very, very split staff, players, about how they feel about Greenwood returns. Arnold is then investigating, would this impact commercial brands? A decision will be made off not if what the players want. A decision will be made off not what the fans want. It's not what the players want, what Ten Hag wants, what the fans want. At the end of the day, doesn't matter. Arnold's decision will be made off, is it going to damage the amount of money we make commercially from sponsors? That is it. That is it, I think, as well. Are the current owner and board that bothered? They have 1 foot out the door. Seems that this could be a problem for new owners. And that's a good comment there from Alex B. Are they, realistically, the new owners, there's potential that they could stay. This is a new story that the owners could stay today, and we'll get into that today. But you know, there is the stance of, actually, this isn't really our problem. Shall we just investigate it for a couple of months and then leave the new owners to make a decision next season? Whether Greenwood will be happy with them spending months investigating it, could Greenwood potentially take action and say, well, I've not been charged, they're not letting me back, it's all like confusing, la-di-la-di-la, I want some clarity. I don't know. It's such a difficult situation. And I all I can say is I am relieved I am not the one making that decision. It's a big decision for Arnold because, you know, people have very different opinions on this. Like, even looking at the live chat, so many people have very different opinions of this. And at the end of the day, our opinions don't matter. What we think, what we believe, what we think went down does not matter. At the end of the day, none of it matters. All that matters to United is this going to affect the money they make? Is this going to cause that as well? Rob says, pay him off and ship him somewhere else. We don't need him. A headache for Ten Hag doesn't need. I think as well, my biggest fear with him coming back is also, is this going to have, if a lot of the squad don't want him back, if this is a bit of an uncomfortable situation for players, is this going to disrupt what Ten Hag's built? Is this going to disrupt the positive dressing environment? You know, we had a negative dressing room, now we have a positive dressing room. You know, this could have serious implications on what Ten Hag's building, the dressing room and all of that. And for me, that is my biggest thing is, like, if he comes back, it could cause a stir, it could cause some issues, it could cause some unhappy players. And that's a really big thing that you've actually got to keep in mind. Like, are people going to be happy? And I think this is what I would do. If I was Arnold, I would say he can return, but not to the club, not to the first team, not to play, not to train. He can return in the sense of he can be shipped off at, you know, we're at the under-23s, just play a bit of football, train a bit there, and we'll sell him in the summer. Because, you know, I think realistically, I would probably, if they terminate his contract, rip it off and be like, adios. But United, you know, the money to terminate his contract, 20 million. If I'm looking at this from not what I do, I'm looking at this from a business perspective. When I say he can return to the under-23s and train, I'm saying this is a business decision. My thought process is just rip off the contract and let him fuck off. But I'm saying, if I was in business, and if I was Arnold or Mercer thinking it in a business way, return, but not to the first team, not to play again, just under-23s and sell him in summer and let him go abroad. Because he can play again. He will be able to play again. He's legally not been charged. His best option is to go abroad. And that's what I'm saying is, you know, ripping up the contract, sell him off, send him, fine. But from a business perspective, if I was Arnold, I would say from a business perspective, we don't want him near the first team. We don't want him near the first squad, but we want to cash in on him on the summer. I think that would probably be their sort of smart decision to play as well. Because it is business at the end of the day. And this is business to United as well. It's a shame because it's such a sensitive topic, but it is business as well. And how much would it cost to terminate his contract? I think it's like nearly 20 million. And we know how broke United are as well. And they've already terminated one contract as well. But it's a difficult one because the thing is, and I'll show you, know, he's a striker. He's a player in a position of need. And, you know, I don't know if Ten Hag will want him. But it's a shame that this all happened because I've always said, like, what he had to offer before it all happened is exactly what we need. And that is the worst thing about the situation. It's like he was young, he was the future. What he offered was, you know, everything we needed. But is it right? It's such a horrible situation. But guys, we're 85 likes away from 200 likes. So please do smash that like button as well. And of course, subscribe down below as well. And you know, the reality in regards to Greenwood is, even if this case would have gone to trial and Greenwood won, people would still not want him to play for United again. Yeah, this is the thing. We haven't seen I've always said this. I've heard the voice note, what audio note. I can't unhear it. What I heard was disgusting. From what I heard, I go to the assumption that he's guilty, even though he hasn't been proven guilty, because I don't know what I've heard. But we haven't seen his evidence. We haven't seen, you know, the reason why he wasn't convicted. There could be a genuine reason why, where there's a witness that said, no, trust me, this was like framed, or you don't know anything. And that's the thing. Everyone has their opinion, and some people unfortunately have really vile opinions that are insensitive. You can have an opinion to whether you think he can play again or not, but some people are being just really insensitive and horrid. But you know, everyone can have an opinion because we don't know what went on. But it's a horrid thing to think. And if this decision happened a few days earlier, it could have loaned him out to give the club more time to decide. Yeah, and the thing is, there's a lot of teams abroad that would probably take Greenwood on loan. You know, I think in England it's a more sensitive topic, but there are other countries where this kind of topic isn't superly sensitive. I think his best bet is to probably go abroad. I think in England it's just not going to work for him, but I think in other countries he might be better as well. and 70k a week to play for the under-23s just to the end of the season, and then you sell them off. If you're looking at it from a business perspective, you put him back in the under-23s. Because if you rip the contract, you have to pay a shit ton of money. If you're looking at this from a business perspective, you don't bother the first team. You put it back with the under-23s because he's still under 23, and then you sell him in the summer abroad. And the only way he can return if he's proven innocent, as long as that's the mentality, it will never work. Yeah, a lot of people have things, and Arsenal didn't drop Partey, and people will argue that it's not right that he should play, but if Arsenal don't drop Partey, then why drop Greenwood? It's just not a nice situation to be in, and Richard Arnold's got a decision to make as well. And United still get away fans singing about him at matches. It's not worth it. United have an image to think about, and I think Rob makes a really good point here. It's about the image. It's about the brand. I tell you what, he will get rinsed. I will say one thing, if he plays for United again, he will get rinsed. I mean, like Thomas Partey gets it, but the attention on Greenwood compared to Thomas Partey, he will get rinsed. The Leeds fans were singing, Mason Greenwood is one of your own. He's one of your own. Mason Greenwood is one of your own. And then, to be fair, the United fans went back at Leeds and went, he's from Yorkshire. He's one of your own. Because Mason Greenwood is actually from Yorkshire, which is nearer to Leeds. And then the United fans chatted back that Greenwood was one of Leeds' signs. But imagine the chance. It's a very problematic thing. Especially if Jamie Vardy gets shit for his wife being a snitch. The chance would just be crazy as well. But should we talk about a nicer topic? Should we get into a nicer topic? Because we're kind of talking about the whole situation. I'm trying to talk about this from the most neutral perspective I can, of saying there's two sides of the story. We don't know the facts, but obviously, my opinion is I heard that voice note. Unless the girl was really forgiving, apologetic, says something like that or there's really strong evidence from his side to prove that this voice note was not him or framed or something. My head still feels it doesn't feel right to play him again, even though he's not been proven guilty. My head still feels towards guilty just from what I've heard. But from a neutral perspective, we haven't heard the other side of the story. We don't know what went on. Technically, he's not charged. Technically, other players play. I'm trying to look at it with the most neutral perspective I can. But in my opinion, I think sell him abroad. That's my honest opinion on it as well. But there's other things to talk about as well. There's other news, because we spent half an hour talking about someone, and there's obviously your news, guys. If you've not seen it, very much a decision for Arnold to make. Basically, workforce are kind of weighing up the decision. And obviously it's all about, is it going to impact the commercial side and all of that, and that's Arnold's decision. But there has been news about Manchester United signing midfielder today. There has been some positive news today, and we've been linked to a young midfielder, USA player from Utrecht. Now, Utrecht was actually where Ten Hag used to work, and this player is meant to be like a young kind of Frankie de Jong-esque player, this midfielder called Taylor Booth. Now, he's not a player I'm super familiar with. He's a player I've heard of, but he's not a player I've watched play and I know a lot about, and not a player that I'm super familiar with and all that. Enzo Fernandez starts tonight, which is interesting as well. And Mudryk starts tonight. Chelsea are playing their 100 signings tonight. This is not a player I'm superly over familiar with. This is not a player I know a lot about, but we are looking at a young midfielder called Matty. Not called Matty. Why am I thinking Matty? Called Taylor Booth, who's meant to be kind of like De Jong, very versatile, very, very Ten Hag-esque player. As United are looking to obviously bring in, we know 100% we'll bring in another midfielder in summer. United's priority is to bring another midfielder in summer, and that's what they want to do. But someone's saying he's a winger. I've read that he's a midfielder, like a CM. People are telling me that, and apparently he's a bit of a De Jong. He can play on the wing. He can play as CM as well. Kind of all round the midfield as well. But apparently he's like Frankie de Jong. As I said, haven't seen him play lots and lots and lots. But apparently he's a midfielder that's quite flexible as well, and that United are kind of interested in looking at him, which I will get into that news in a second. We've also got news on the other transfer front regarding a Osimhen Vlahovic kind of Sesko situation as well. I think what's going on with United at the moment, and I want to get into the general transfer front, is it's going to be a big striker signing, a midfield signing, and probably a goalkeeper signing. I think United are very much looking at getting a midfielder in, getting a big striker signing in, and probably a goalkeeper signing in. And we've been looking at strikers. Strikers is the number one priority. And the news coming out at the moment is, although we'd like Osimhen, because Osimhen's quite expensive, United are sort of turning towards potentially Vlahovic, especially with the Juventus situation coming on. That's where United keeping their eye on. And I just want to get into the Taylor booth and give you a bit of context on the player. So obviously he's a very young player, as you can see, 21 years of age, USA international, very young. Look, he could be a good signing. It's a very raw one. He plays for Utrecht, but this season in 19 games, 2 goals, 3 assists. He's mostly played as a centre mid. Reportedly, he's a bit of an attacking version of De Jong. As you said, he can play winger from time to time, but he's mostly plays CM or attacking midfielder. So I get the impression he's a bit of a number 8, a more advanced version of De Jong from what I've read, from what I've asked people out. I don't know lots about this player. I haven't watched him play. I've asked a few people who've watched him play about him. And apparently he could be one of these Ten Hag geniuses, but he could also be a Dan James. He's one of those players where we'll sign him and he's just not to that level, and it's kind of like Dan James, and you're like, we've got someone on the cheap, we've got someone relatively unknown, but actually they're not it. Or it could be someone that we sign and then we're like, this is Ten Hag genius, this is Ten Hag magicry. We see teams get these kind of hidden gem players. We saw Benfica get Enzo Fernandez, and look how well that worked for them. This could be like Enzo Fernandez, or this could be like Dan James. You don't know with these kind of signings how they're going to work, but for me, I think as well for CM from what I've seen, from what I've read and what people have told me, he's more of a CM than a winger. But I can see why you said he's a winger. Well, not you, but someone else who's a winger because he's played there as well. And Alex B says, I think Kenny Taylor from Ajax is much more Frankie de Jong. Like, would rather take that on a development project. And I think what we need is a Frankie de Jong like player as well. Like, I don't know if we will get Frankie de Jong. I don't know at all. That Enzo Fernandez is gone. Bellingham, I doubt. So I think we probably will go in for Frankie de Jong. But I think we will be looking at Frankie de Jong alternatives, because that situation with Frankie de Jong depends on a lot of things. As Daniel said, he's got great potential, but it does depend on a lot of things. And people say Vlahovic is a slow Nunes. He's a bit better than Nunes. Tell you what, Vlahovic got a free fucking kick on him as well. Can't score. Why would anyone want Vlahovic? Might as well buy Morata. Vlahovic is a good player in my opinion. Our first choice, Man United's first choice, is Osimhen. United's first choice is Osimhen. Their second choice is Kane. The third choice is Vlahovic, and the fourth choice is Sesko, from what I'm reading. And I'll be honest, I think that Vlahovic would be a good signing. Now, in my opinion, if I could bring anyone in the world to United, it would be Victor Osimhen. I would absolutely cream over Victor Osimhen and Frankie de Jong transfer window. But dreams at United don't always come true because of Glazer ownership. Now, hopefully the Glazers won't be here. We've actually got some stories about some of the Glazers potentially staying as well. But it'll be. Ooh, sorry, one second. I need to take a sip of water. I'm losing my voice. Sorry. Sorry about that. I'm losing my voice. And Vlahovic honestly needs to see more. But we'll have a look at Vlahovic. We'll get a look at Vlahovic actually. Should we get we'll get Vlahovic's stats up for you, because Vlahovic is only 22. Have I spelled his name right? We'll see. There we go. Because Vlahovic is only 23 actually. Must have just turned 23. Yeah, January 28th. So he's only just turned 23. Yugoslavia, yeah. But if we look at his statistics, and we look at this season hasn't been as good for him. But have you seen Juventus this season? So this season, in 17 games, he's got 7 goals, 2 assists. It's not been his best season this season. 6 goals in 879 minutes in Serie A, though. Still decent his stats, but not been his best odd season as well. Had a few injury problems as well. Not been his best season. However, he's still getting goals. If we look at him last season, he was age 21 last season, 29 goals and 6 assists, but 29 goals last season, that's absolutely unreal in my opinion. 24 in the Serie A at such a young age. That's just last season. And if you look at the season before, where he was literally a 20-year-old kid, like young-ass kid, still getting 21 goals in the Serie A at age 20. That, like, you can't deny there's a top player in Vlahovic as well. I think the media is reaching with these links. We have no idea the new owner's transfer budget or strategy. And I think Alex makes a good point. I think we can use common sense that it's a striker, a midfielder, and a goalkeeper that we want. And we can use common sense that Austin Hem is someone that we will want, Frankie de Jong is someone that we'll want, and Vlahovic is someone that we want. But we don't have like a concrete United will go all out for this player. This player's 100% in the plan. I think, we can come to the conclusion that this is who we want, but we don't know who the actual first choice is, as well. By the way, guys, actually, news. Marcus Rashford got Player of the Month as well. Positive news as well. But he's scoring a lot of goals. So we'll go back onto Twitter actually, because we've got a few other stories to talk about. So my throat's a bit gone as well. But it was said that Rashford won Player of the Month, and I actually did a cheeky tweet. And I said Rashford has as many Player of the Month awards this season as Grealish. And I have to say, I want to talk about some positive things. I want to talk about some nice things. The growth and development of Marcus Rashford this season has been absolutely brilliant. The growth and development, like Rashford has, I can't actually explain how good Rashford has been this season. I can't, unreal. Unreal Rashford's been this season. Unreal. I was about to say something, and when your mind goes blank. I was about to say something, so I kept saying that Rashford's been unreal because my mind just completely lost it. But, I love Rashford. I knew Rashford was a good player. But I thought, Rashford was going to have a good season under Ten Hag. I thought it was going to be a good season. But I didn't, this is the best Rashford's ever been. I didn't think after what happened to Rashford last season, he was going to come back this good, and he did. And you have to give Rashford so much credit for that. Because I never said Trashford. If you watch my channel, I've never said Trashford. You know that. I probably said, I mean, we can, if you look at, I can't bother to get my old tweets up, but I've never said bad things about Rashford. I've said that I've criticised his form. I said he was not running enough for United. I was saying he was not good enough last season. But I've always said there's a top player in Rashford. And even someone who was one of the few people in the fan base that didn't doubt Rashford, I didn't think he'd come back this good. What Ten Hag's done to Rashford, what Rashford's done to recover last season is brilliant. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. 2 Player of the Month awards, only Haaland, Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi. Only Haaland, Mbappe, Neymar, and Messi have more goals and assists than Rashford this season. Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi play in a shit league that's like the Eredivisie. Rashford would probably have 10 more goals than he played in the Eredivisie. So technically, in my book, only Haaland is getting more goals and assists than Rashford this season as well. He played with a broken back, always supported him. Ollie played him through injuries. Exactly. I've always sat here with Rashford and said, last season he was unacceptable. Last season he didn't track back. Last season wasn't good. But I said, I know what Rashford can do. And Ollie ran him to the ground. Then he got racially abused at the Euros. Then Ragnick and him had a big falling out. And then he wasn't happy at United and it all went downhill. But he's just such a good player. And I just think what I've seen in Rashford, I'm really hoping we're going to see in Sancho. I really do. And I believe we could see it in Sancho. But I wanted to show you my tweet from earlier as well. Only Messi, Neymar, Mbappe and Haaland have more goal contributions than Rashford this season. I've seen people saying that Martinelli's better. I did a TikTok today ranking all the Premier League wingers. I said Rashford first this season. I said this based off this season, Rashford's the best left winger in the Premier League. Guess what one of the top comments was? With all these Arsenal fans going, no, Martinelli's better, we're top of the league. Arsenal fans are so insecure. Yes, Arsenal are top of the league, but Rashford's better than Martinelli. You can't have it all. Arsenal fans, even though they're top of the league, they still have to say that, Arteta's... Arsenal fans were saying that Arteta's first 6 months was better than Ten Hag's first 6 months. Arteta's first 6 months, he came 8th. And Ten Hag had, you're saying that, Arteta inherited a worse squad than Ten Hag. Mate, Aubameyang and Lacazette and Pepe were meant to be this brilliant front three that had got like 30-goal season. What are you saying Arteta inherited a worse squad than Ten Hag? I don't know what it is with Arsenal fans. They're top of the league, and they're still trying to say Martinelli's better than Rashford, and that Arteta had a better first 6 months than Ten Hag. Now, I wonder we don't want Arsenal to win the league. You wonder why we don't want Arsenal to win the league. But I just thought, Player of the Month for Rashford, something nice, a nice academy graduate to talk about in today's video as well. And Rashford has more goal contributions than Martinelli and Saka combined. And Rashford needs to spend his entire career at United playing his best football. Hopefully we can get that new contract sorted because he's playing absolutely unreal as well. And he's just entering his prime age, and Erik Ten Hag preferred football isn't even in place yet. Like, imagine how good he could be next season. My only fear of Rashford is that Ten Hag's so reliant on him that Ten Hag's going to end up overplaying him. That's my only fear of Rashford, because our other attackers just aren't firing like Rashford at the moment. And I'm worried that Ten Hag might feel pressure to play Rashford, and then he potentially might overplay Rashford. And I think that's the one thing that's kind of worrying me, that maybe Rashford, Bruno, Casemiro, and that could all potentially drop off and all of that. But guys, please do smash that like button, and of course subscribe down below to Alice Talks Football if you're new. If you do want to stay up to date with all the latest Manchester United news, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The final thing I want to talk about in today's video is potentially the lineup that I expect to see tomorrow versus Crystal Palace. I want to get the lineup up on my screen here. We know that David De Gea will play. We know that because Dalot is injured but back in training, Wan-Bissaka will play, and I think that Luke Shaw will play because he does seem to play Premier League games. We know it will be Martinez and Varane unless a last-minute injury happens, and we know, of course, Casemiro is going to play because McTominay is injured and Eriksen's also injured. We know that Bruno is going to play. We know that Rashford will obviously start. I think that Martial could start over Weghorst. I actually think we could see Martial here and Anthony here. I think we might play Martial over Wout, potentially. I don't know how fit he is. I think Sancho will still be on the bench to warm up. And I think Feb will play, but I think Sabitzer could come on. That is the lineup I think we'll see tomorrow for tomorrow's game. But it'll be interesting to see what we actually do end up doing as well. But who would you play for tomorrow's game? I think that he'll probably be careful to just slowly implement Sancho back in and maybe put Sancho on 60th minute, depending on stuff as well. But maybe Sabitzer will start, but I think Fred's been so good lately. I think that Fred deserves to start, but he might play Sabitzer in this kind of game. But I think Sabitzer's more of an attacking sub if you potentially go behind or you need a goal or withdrawing or something as well. But I do think, we've got a lot of games coming up. We've got the Newcastle final. Ten Hag, the one thing that worries me about, these players is, are they going to be able to play all these games? That's the one thing that worries me. Are they going to be able to play all these games? And also, the one thing that I'm being positive about, though, is I do think we've got a lot of good players. I do think if Sancho, Anthony, Garnacho, Amad Diallo, Rashford, Martial, when they're all good, they're good. While I sometimes worry about the depth in attack, I also go, if these guys are firing, they're good in attack. It's conflicting feelings. But look, I'm going to wrap up the live stream here, but big up everybody in the chat. I'm sorry the first sort of 20 minutes was a bit of a sensitive one as well. Hope Sabitzer hits the ground running. 100% he didn't hit the ground running. But I thought I'd get into a bit of the news. I'd get into the Rashford stuff, and then obviously we talk a bit about the Greenwood stuff and all of that. And if we do get any updates on the situation, I will remind you guys and I'll do videos on it. So make sure you're subscribed, smash a like, see you next time, and bye.